Good morning, everybody. Lake Tanganyika is one of the Great Lakes of Central Africa. And it was on this date, November 10, in 1871, that Henry Stanley walked into a village along that lake and supposedly said, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume?" Europeans have known about Africa for a long time. The ancient Greeks had a settlement in Cyrene, which you see on this map, the northern part of Libya. Alexander the Great had gone to Africa. In the lower left, you see where he was in Egypt, and he started Alexandria, which is still there today. The Romans had to fight the Carthaginians, who were from North Africa, as they established their empire around the Mediterranean. And in the Middle Ages, people knew about Africa due to the great trading routes that went through places like Timbuktu on the left here. And one man who was really interested in the things from the interior was this guy, Prince Henry the Navigator from Portugal. The Portuguese had captured Morocco, and when he was a young man, Henry had gone there and had seen things like ivory. So when he became the king, he started encouraging his people to explore Africa. And this map shows all the places the Portuguese went as they started exploring the African continent. Now, at the same time, there was a story of a Christian prince deep in the heart of Africa, and he was known as Prester John. And all through the Middle Ages, there was a hope that somehow European explorers would find him. He never existed, of course, but it was a great story. Well, in the late 1700s, the London Missionary Society was formed, and it had a bunch of goals. One goal was to spread the gospel. Another goal was to get rid of slavery, but also was to do some exploring. And this map of the great rivers of Africa shows us where the Nile River is. And the Nile had two branches, the blue and the white. And in the middle of the 1800s, one of the great geographic questions was, where does the Nile start? And this was a big deal. Now, at the same time, there's a lot of independent kingdoms in Africa. And part of the story is how these kingdoms are going to disappear. And by the end of the 1800s, the Europeans will dominate the continent. So here's David Livingstone. He was born in 1813. As a teenager, he wanted to be a missionary. He applied to the London Missionary Society. He made his first mission trip to Africa in his 20s. And he went back and forth between Africa and London. And this map shows us all the different routes Livingstone took. He wrote reports for the Royal Geographic Society. But at one point he disappeared. He disappeared for 6 years. So he's in the very top part of the map here when Henry Stanley finds him. So here's Henry Stanley. He was hired by the New York Herald to find Livingstone. He had been born in Great Britain, but actually moved to the United States and had fought in the Civil War for a little bit. So he went to Zanzibar. That's the island right off the coast of East Africa, which you see here. He got his group together, went inland to Lake Tanganyika, and was able to track Livingstone down, and here he is. And here's our event, November 10, 1871. So did Stanley really say, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume"? Well, we think so. Not sure exactly, but it's likely. And the humor, of course, is there wasn't another Brit within thousands of miles of that spot. 2 years later, Livingstone died, and they took out his heart and buried it under a tree, supposedly here. And then they moved his body to London, where he was interred in the floor of Westminster Abbey, pictured here, along with famous Brits. But what's going to happen to Africa? Well, the European powers became very interested in Africa. And in the 1880s, the Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck, pictured here, decided to call a conference to divvy up Africa like you'd cut up a pie. And this is the result. So by 1890, most of Africa was controlled by Europeans. And notice particularly in the middle, the Belgian Congo. So after he found Livingstone, Stanley was hired by Leopold II to explore the Congo River Basin. Leopold was the king of Belgium, and that's the background to the Belgian Congo. So here's a photograph of the Great Lakes region of Africa. Historic, beautiful, visit it if you get a chance.